Ladies and gentlemen, Harry Brailsford at the 420msp.com, and in my research in preparing my recent book on how to be an MSP in a vertical market, in particular the cannabis industry, I bumped into the accounting firms and the accounting community. So I'm with Andrew from Dope CFO. And Andrew, before I let you introduce yourself and tell your story of how as a service provider, you got into this, and now you're helping service providers, and that's very interesting for our MSP audience. I want to tell on myself a little bit first. So in the mid-90s, I spent 5 years, and I just adored it, at a regional accounting firm up here called Clark Nuber, and maybe you're familiar with them. And I was directing the network consulting practice, and it was all fun and giggles until we got shut down, and I think it was 99 because of the Anderson fiasco between audit and consulting. So I exited, had a very generous and gracious exit from Clark Nuber. In fact, that's what started SMB Nation, my parent company. And so there's a place in my heart for the accounting industry. And now, with that preface, introduce yourself, what you do in Bend, Oregon, how you got to where you're at, and then I have some specific questions on how you train service providers. That's really cool.
Okay, so I've just been a CPA since 1995. I'm from Oklahoma. We moved to Oregon in 2010, but I worked in Big Four, Price Waterhouse, and Grant Thornton as an audit manager. Short story, spent a decade as a CFO of an oil and gas company in Oklahoma. We did a fairly big exit with a company we founded in the midst of that in 2010 to an S&P company, and that allowed me to move to Oregon. Since then, I've just worked on my own, serving clients in CFO and accounting role. Mostly was in high tech. Bend is kind of a high tech hub out of sister to Silicon Valley. When cannabis came around, I accidentally got a cannabis client, and then that led me to another one. I kind of accidentally again fell into CFO role at Hi-Fi Farms, which is a pretty high-profile Oregon cannabis company. Had big name investors from all over the U.S., lots of publicity. So as part of that role and serving them as CFO, I spent about a year researching and talking to tax CPAs and all my contacts in Big Four, and could find nothing on cannabis, nothing in GAAP, nothing in.
Amen.
I had to build things from the ground up because it just simply, I kid my kids, they say you can Google anything. I was like, you cannot Google cannabis accounting. And so it's not there.
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
Well, it's funny because, again, at some level, you and I lead parallel lives because in doing my couple of years of research, and by the way, this is serious research. I treat it seriously. This is not Cheech and Chong and all that nonsense. No desire to go there. But I couldn't find a lot of info. Right, I would call this primary research, not secondary research. And my new book, I continue to double click down into Amazon, and I cannot find another technology, purpose-built book for the cannabis sector. Now there will, I know it's coming, but I feel your pain. Because my community are managed services providers, or, the computer guys and gals that we all know and see at the red light in the van that says Joe's Computers, they are interested in new opportunities. And what I would like you to do is tell your story about how you're essentially doing training for people in your industry, bookkeepers and accountants, to help them quickly and efficiently and effectively get into the cannabis industry. So, sir, what is your story with your training?
And so I think so my story is on the accounting side, but you can pick computer, software, legal, marketing, any side of cannabis, even construction, realtors, and it's the Wild West. So there are early people that are getting in, learning how to do things right, and then what you'll find happens is, because I've been doing client service for decades, but I've never taught anyone anything before, but people just literally found me, and I was started with some phone calls and emails. Hey, you got a chart of accounts? Do you have how do you do cannabis cost accounting? How do you account for the cost of a plant? Um, and so I started taking calls and emails. Quickly, that led into people wanting to buy my work papers, and then I sold some individual work papers, and then eventually that rolled into an entire course that I've seen this, and I'm actually so tired of reviewing. I've probably seen 300 set of books around the U.S. I've helped investors get out of bad investments from $100 million companies down to multi-million, and the books are generally a wreck. They're all over the press as well. You can read so many court cases now, and so there is a huge need, just like every other service area in accounting. So we need trained accountants. So we've been doing this for about a year and a half now. I think my first student came out of Dallas, Texas in the end of 2017. Now we have 240 states, CPAs, MBAs, CFOs, bookkeepers, and we just provide a huge shortcut into the niche. We give all the knowledge around the tax, the issue, the cases, the compliance, teach them about the software, cash management, banking, and then the actual tools, the chart of accounts, the cost accounting templates that we've had to build from scratch. They're not available via industry, Big Four, QuickBooks, Xero, any of them. So kind of had to go from the ground up.
No, this is a great story, and let me give you a little context, and I'm going to turn it into a question. So stick with me. There's a question at the end of the storytelling. Yeah. On the way up, it's part of I call it my living theology, or giving back to the community. I was an adjunct instructor in the computer side at Seattle Pacific University, and Seattle's a very exciting city for technology. So I did that as a younger man, and felt that was kind of my go-juice. So I have an appreciation for courseware, instructional design, and so on. And then in my research, my grad degree was from the University of Denver, and I go to Denver occasionally, and there is a professor there who has a landmark cutting-edge course now in its third year of the business of marijuana. And if you can believe it, it's in the MBA program at the University of Denver. And it's one of these, it started out as just one quarter a year, spring quarter, and now it's every quarter, and it's oversubscribed, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And he brings in subject matter experts and guest speakers and so on. So the point is, you're onto something. Number two, what is the basic instructional design? Now, do you travel and do one-day workshops like in San Jose, California? What is this, a 90-day online curriculum? What's the basic structure?
So it was kind of built by and with our students, and so it's we call it plug and play and a shortcut. And so it's all online, and it's not a traditional course. Like, you don't log in and just say, here's week 1, I'm going to teach you about engagement letters, or here's week 2, how do you onboard a client? What we're saying is, here is every last document we use in our practice. So it's set up in folder structures. So I have some students come to me from Oklahoma, for example, say they got 3 clients. There's 3,000 new companies in Oklahoma. They've got 3 clients. They have no idea what to do on any of it. And I'm like, great, skip the marketing folder. You don't need to find clients. We're going to educate you quickly on 471, the tax codes, and then jump right into folder number 1 in client service, which is onboarding a client. And so, as opposed to me telling you 30 minutes of what you should have in your engagement letter, I'll say, here is my engagement letter that we built with attorneys. You can use this, put your name on it, use it with a client. Or here is a list of what we need from client. Or here is a chart of accounts. So it's very plug and play and interactive. I consider it like an online encyclopedia. So you'll go back. We have a month-end process and template. So every client, every month, you'll probably go back to that folder. You'll download that template. You'll use it on that client. And so it moves back and forth very easily. Plus, we have a library of Q&A calls and other documents. But it's a little bit coarse, but it's also a little bit real work papers and templates.
Yeah. No, I'd like to visit again with you at a future date and double click into that, because here's the deal. My MSPs have relationships with accountants and bookkeepers for a couple reasons, right? They need to do their taxes. Yeah. They get referrals. And that goes back to my Clark Nuber storytelling. That was
Yeah.
a beautiful thing in the 90s was the accountants across the hall would refer me in to the technology side of the equation, and it was a solid referral, right? And so that was a done deal. And then finally they could help socialize what you're doing, right? Of course, they could say, hey, Joni, you should be aware of Dope CFO, dopecfo.com. You should be aware of that. So we want to make sure you continue to do the good work. And if you don't mind, we're going to check in with you, maybe next quarter.
Yeah, these different sub industries work together. And same with software and connecting with people of each of these industries. They all need help right now in cannabis.
Yeah. All right. Well, Andrew, thank you for your time. And folks, I have the URL down right beneath us, and so double click through. Let me ask you, because I am looking at your home screen, and you have program overview. So I'm assuming someone can double click down into your site and get a fairly good idea of what you're doing, and then make the right decision for them.
Yes, they can click on the very home page. There's a button to learn more, and there's a 1-hour webinar that tells every last detail of what's in our program, as well as offering a discount if you actually watch the hour webinar.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, well, go out and ski, Bend, Oregon. Okay, go run.
All right, well, thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.